Some call it a crisis. Homes filled with daddyless daughters and fatherless sons. Statistics show 1 in 3 children don't live with their fathers. Coming up, we explore the Fatherhood Initiative, a group of local educators and nonprofits coming together to get dads more involved in their kids' lives. Plus, we hear from teen dads about the struggles they face to stay in school and support their families on this episode of Focus.
Focus showcases the people, places, and issues that matter to you.
Everybody has a story.
These are the stories that uplift and inspire right here in your neighborhood. Focus on what matters. You never know what you're going to see when you tune into Focus.
Support for Focus is provided by
Univest, banking, insurance, investments, fellowship community, continuing care with spirit, and by viewers like you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I'm Laura McHugh. According to the National Fatherhood Initiative, 24 million children live in America, and 1 in 3 don't live with their biological dads. That's 8 million kids, equal to the entire population of New York City. Research shows kids who grow up without their fathers are more likely to live in poverty, commit crimes, and drop out of high school. In this month's Spotlight on Service, Focus reporter Grover Silcox explores one Allentown program that keeps young dads in school. Grover?
Thanks, Laura. For decades, programs designed to support teen parents have focused on the moms. But today, a growing number of programs also focus on teen dads. Communities and Schools, a national dropout prevention organization, has partnered with the Allentown School District to support teen dads through an initiative called the Elect Fatherhood Program. Adult responsibilities come early for teen fathers. Jadiel Cancel and Jonathan Mendez, students at William Allen High School, face those responsibilities every day.
The doctor showed me how to hold him, like holding the back of his head and all that. It was weird. I never held a newborn.
18-year-old Jadiel feeds his 6-month-old son, Caden, at the Lehigh Valley Children's Center inside the William Allen High School.
How was I going to provide for the child? That was my big concern. And how would I be as a father?
Jadiel wants to be the dad he never had.
Yes, a whole lot more different than him. Actually be there for my kid a lot more too.
Sam Martinez, outreach worker for Communities and Schools Elect Fatherhood Program in the Allentown School District, helps Jadiel and other teen dads handle the enormous challenges of teen parenting.
So I remind them that they need to stay in school because a diploma equals a paycheck.
Sam supports these students all the way to graduation.
That is our main goal, to make sure that they are coming to school, that they're maintaining a 2.0 or higher GPA, and to make sure that they are on track for graduation.
Sam and other outreach workers from CIS serve kids in 19 schools throughout the Lehigh Valley.
There's so many resources and supportive services that we connect the students with.
CIS connects teen parents with programs such as Pennsylvania's Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP, and Early Head Start. It helps them get funding for daycare. It has a supply of baby clothes and diapers for them. And it connects them with CareerLink and helps them find and manage jobs.
They have to balance being a student, now being a father, then going to work, then doing homework. You know, there's a lot of stresses involved.
On this day, Sam helps teen dad Jonathan Mendez, a junior at Allen, work out scheduling conflicts between caring for his 1.5-year-old daughter Serenity, working at KFC, and participating on the school's wrestling team.
And I told him I can't work Mondays anymore.
About 80% of my students, I connect them with jobs. And then as far as going to college, I would say about 50%. They end up going to higher education.
Jonathan plans on going to college to study engineering or nutrition. He gets B's and C's even with all the demands on him.
I can't just go anywhere I want without having to worry about her. I just changed, grew up a lot quickly.
Jadiel splits his time between school, working at Walmart, in caring for Caden.
I go to work at 4, come home at 1 in the morning, and then I gotta watch him for the rest of the night if he wakes up, and then wake up around 5, because that's when he wakes up. I come into school at 7:30 and leave at 11.
In spite of the obstacles, Jadil plans on graduating and moving forward with his life.
I want to become a master mason and open up my own bike shop.
Sam keeps his teen dads on track for getting their diploma, all the while supporting and teaching them how to care for their children.
They know it's hard work, they know it's a big responsibility, but every time they look at their child, they see that miracle and they're like, wow, that becomes their motivation and their fuel to not give up.
Which is why 80 to 90% of the teen dads in this fatherhood program make it to graduation, and the promise of a successful future for them and their children. For Focus, I'm Grover Silcox reporting.
Thank you, Grover. In our region, the Lehigh Valley Research Consortium reports about 9% of households are single-parent families. They're twice as likely to live in poverty, and the vast majority are headed by single mothers. Single dads account for about 15% of single-parent homes. Focus reporter Brittany Garzillo joins us with more on a program to support fathers. Brittany?
Thanks, Laura. A 2006 study from the Journal of Family Psychology found that children with more involved fathers experienced fewer behavioral problems and scored high on reading achievement. In this story, you'll see how one local program helps connect a single father in need with support systems and community resources.
Inside the Parkland Community Library, 11-year-old Damien Aponte pulls books off a shelf and begins reading.
Later, the whole island was called Puerto Rico.
He and his father, Richard Aponte, a single father from Allentown, bond over a book about Puerto Rico, Richard's birthplace.
You go there and the beach is blue, nice and blue.
Richard became a father in his early 20s and faces the challenges of a single parent.
It's challenging because, you really have to be there for him.
Here, the two spend time together as they read and play games, resources that Richard and his son now take advantage of because of help from a free local program offered through Pine Brook Family Answers called the Fatherhood Program.
The goal of the program is to equip the fathers with the tools necessarily to be better father and to be present in the life of the children.
The Fatherhood Program helps connect fathers with appropriate community resources, increase parenting skills, and helps develop fathers as resources for their children.
We explore the needs of that father. Based on those needs, then we establish a plan to help him to get the goals that he needs to serve and to be with his children or with the family.
The program started in 2007 and is part of Pine Brook Family Answers Family Preservation Program called SHAPE. Jessica Katzbeck, Director of Community-Based Programs, says that about 75% of families that go through the SHAPE program are single mother or two-parent homes.
We don't have a ton of services out there just for fathers, and there's a lot of fathers that are raising their children alone now. So when we are looking at our families and we're working on family preservation and building a stronger family unit, we need to look at single fathers as well.
Gilberto Garcia Rodriguez, a fatherhood specialist at Pine Brook Family Answers and parent himself, works face-to-face with fathers like Richard to get them the help they need.
It can be financial, it can be social agencies, it can be, I don't know, a father needs to talk with somebody. So he needs somebody to listen, I'll be there for him.
There's a lot of fathers who may have been absentee fathers, a lot of fathers who are now taking over bigger roles in the families, and he helps them build those stronger connections to their children, wives, significant others, whatever the situation may be. He's there to assist in that aspect. And a lot of men like to work with men as opposed to a woman because they tend to feel like they have a stronger connection.
Gilberto works with fathers like Richard, who are referred to the program through Lehigh and Northampton County Children and Youth, weekly for 3 to 6 months. Other cases are on a voluntary basis.
We know that every father out there has the ability to be a great dad, but some need help, and just like some mothers need help, some fathers do too. So our goal is to build a stronger father, to be a part of a family and a role model and a support for these kids.
Gilberto connects Richard with community resources, like here at the Parkland Community Library, where he helped Richard access a library card for his son. He currently assists Richard with things like medical assistance, looking for new housing, and addressing the needs of his son.
Richard is a great father, and he's struggling with different situations. He's stepping up to take care of his son. Welcome tonight with our group.
Gilberto and a case manager coach both current fathers and ones that have gone through the program during a voluntary monthly meeting.
In every meeting, we start with the dinner, and then we start the discussion of the topic.
Each father got something important to say, so I sit there and listen. I learn every day.
Following the recent meeting on the topic of work-family balance, Gilberto hands out homework.
They have homework. I give them homework. They have to do it if they want to change and they want to be better fathers. They need to do their homework. We all, as parents, we need to do the homework. We have to do it if we want to raise our kids in a better way.
Sometimes you notice that fathers have a difficult time asking for help. Sometimes it's harder for them to reach out to say, I need help, than to just try and figure it out on their own. And what do I want them to know? I want them to know that there's resources available. There's people that are here to help.
As this program helps Richard towards success, he hopes it has the same effect on the one he's doing it for.
Good. It's due April 22nd. There you go.
I'm doing it for my son because he needs to be orientated by me, but the services that I have help me to really show my kid what I gotta show him, so he can be in the right path to success.
There's not a tremendous amount of resources out there for fathers, so any resources that we have available are a huge bonus to this community.
A bonus for both fathers like Richard and their children. For Focus, I'm Brittany Garzilla reporting.
To continue the conversation, let's welcome a panel of community leaders. Lorna Velasquez runs Hispanic Center Lehigh Valley. Winston Alosi works with the Boys and Girls Club of Bethlehem. Vivian Robledo-Shorey is the supervisor for student and community engagement for the Bethlehem Area School District, and Harrison Bailey is the principal of Liberty High School in Bethlehem. I'd like to begin with a question for the entire group, and I'll start with Lorna. Is this a crisis in our community?
Yes, most definitely. We see it when you look at our children, students, whether it's them not graduating from high school, having children themselves at a young age, and many other challenges that come up, you'll tend to see that they don't have dads in their homes. And there's just a lot of negative effects from not having that positive male role model.
Winston, do you consider the fatherhood issue and a crisis in our community?
I would definitely say that it has an effect on the community. It affects our young people. We see it all the time when you have children who might be getting involved in vandalism, getting involved in adverse activities, and not using their time constructively. You see these issues, and when you talk with them and when you work with them, you'll find that there is a missing component in the home. And many times that is the father or just an adult in general who's caring, who is there, who is compassionate. So I definitely think this is an issue that's facing our community.
What about you, Vivian?
I would agree with the panelists, and I would add the question that I always have is what crisis caused what crisis to occur? So is the crisis the missing father first, or was there another component that caused that father not to be there? And all those things, I mean, the missing dad is a missing, adult in a kid's life, but, there's various reasons why that's happened and how that crisis may have caused the other one to occur, so.
What about you, Harrison, when you're leading a school with hundreds and hundreds of students? Is this a crisis?
Actually, it's thousands of students, but no, I definitely agree. It is. I do believe it's a crisis, and the point in which it really has an effect for me is looking at the fact that we're now hitting a stage where we have young men raising children who have not been raised by men. And so now, how do you become a father and know what that means when you have not had a father? And so that's a very tough thing to be able to handle, because you haven't seen how it's supposed to look. Same for daughters. How do you know how you should be treated as a young lady when you haven't seen how your father treated your mother? That's a very difficult thing to navigate.
I wanted to get back initially to the point that Vivian brought up. What are the causes of fatherlessness in our community? Vivian, what would you like to point out as possible or potential causes?
Well, I would say that the transiency in this community is a factor. So families move and maybe the father doesn't come with the family. So it's not always for a negative reason. They may have to stay back where they originally lived to work. I would say, unfortunately, drugs and alcohol is an issue that keeps a family apart or breaks a family apart that may have started together. So there are probably other factors that you can throw in there. But
I would think situations like living in poverty, the stressors that come with that, just dealing with that, and the stereotype or the perception we have of men that they're supposed to be the provider and the man in the home, and struggling with that because of the economy or not having enough resources.
I definitely think the socioeconomic piece is there, but I think also the cultural pieces too. When you're dealing with populations that are affected by the poverty and are affected by the rates of fatherlessness, those same populations are also affected by cultural differences. So maybe there is a different view of what masculinity and then fatherhood is like and looks like. And when you have those different views or different values, and then not ascribing to those values because maybe that father wasn't there or that father wasn't available. So I think there are a whole bunch of different things that really affect, but I think culturally just that what a father looks like in different cultures is another aspect.
I think we also can't ignore the incarceration rates. Overwhelmingly the number of inmates in facilities are male. And so, and unfortunately, very often of minority status, and it is a plague on our communities. It's tough. When you're growing up as a young man and your father's incarcerated, well, what's your model for how I should behave and what I should do, and my presence for my family when I become of age. So incarceration is a very significant factor in fatherlessness.
Harrison, what are the consequences that you're seeing of children growing up by the time they get to high school? How is that playing out for those young people?
Obviously it's different for every child, but one of the unfortunate things is I often see students who are ranging in a significant level of suspensions. Unfortunately, very often, in our conversation, because when I run hearings for students who are suspended, we talk about everything, and we really try to figure out how to help the child. And very often, the father isn't involved in the child's life, or at least not directly. And very often, it's the mother who's there at the hearings. And I think that is tough for our children to not feel that support. So it has a significant effect on our students.
Winston, what are you seeing as the consequences? You're working with kids primarily in an after-school setting, correct?
Correct. And I think one of the things we're seeing at our Boys and Girls Clubs here in Bethlehem is that you find that those students who have fatherless homes are often looking for positive male influences in their life. So those students really do cling to our staff at our clubs. We have two program directors who are male, myself and Mr. Scott Perry. And then our executive director is a male as well, Gary Martell. And the relationships that the students and the members build with us is very, very important. And I would even use the word crucial. These kids often come in and they're looking for someone to talk to. You know, this happened to me, how do I handle this? This girl likes me, what am I supposed to do? I had a kid come to me 2 weeks ago. I got my girlfriend pregnant again and I'm trying to graduate from high school. What do I need to do? You know, so we definitely see a lot of young men who are really looking for a positive and effective male role model in their life.
And they're looking for solutions, somebody to talk to about their problem, and that's what we saw in the stories that we saw, is that they're looking for resources that might be available.
I mean, and that's not, you're exactly right, and that's not something that you just get from a dad. You can definitely, you know, go to any elder in your community or in your life, but there's just something about going to your father. You know, if you think back, you know, watching an episode of Leave It to Beaver, you know, when there was an issue, the Beav went to go see Ward, you know, and I think that's something in our society that is still very prevalent today. When you have an issue, when you have a concern, you go see, you know, an elder in your life, and in our specific case, a positive male role model. And unfortunately, we have a lot of kids who don't have that in their home.
So we've talked about the scope of the problem and what the consequences are. I'd like now to focus on possible solutions that our community can put forth. First of all, let's begin with the school district. What is the school district doing to help both young dads who are in school as well as young people who are in school but don't have a dad at home?
Well, we have allowed our schools individually to kind of identify what they need and what would work best for their school. So there are several elementary schools that will run specific things for fathers, and one that comes to mind is Lincoln Elementary School with their Donuts for Dads. So they'll have specific morning programs where it's focused on dads to come in. And if there's not a dad in a kid's life, they can bring an uncle, they can bring a grandfather to that program.
But they're actually saying this is an opportunity for a dad to engage with the school. They're inviting them specifically.
Specifically to work with their
son
or daughter, their niece, their nephew, their grandson, granddaughter at the school. We also have what's called Parents as Teachers program. It's a national program out of the Marvine Family Center, and that's not specifically for just fathers, but it works for any parent from conception to the child turning 5. So a father could engage in that if they are alone in dealing with their infant child or 4-year-old, 5-year-old, or a mother could do that, or they could do it together as a family. So we have that program also.
Harrison, what are you doing to help young people as they get into high school connect with male mentors?
Well, first, one of the major resources that we currently have, thanks to our superintendent, is we now have a social worker in our building. And so that really helps, not just with our males, but all of our families, in helping to connect those families to resources that our guidance counselors sometimes don't know, but there are also resources that they won't. And so this social worker really is a pivotal person in helping to connect, for in this example, a young father who needs resources. So that is a key component that we've added. I think it's also important that we look at mentorship programs within our communities. And as a high school, that is something that we've started to develop in a number of different areas. Over the past year, a number of us as male professionals have started to get together. We call it a men's group, but it's kind of, we're getting together to talk about these issues and to talk about how we can help support young men in our community. And we're now at a point where we're starting to develop programs and talk about looking at some outdoor activities and some kind of frequent systems to help students, mostly male, in need.
And Lorna, you're spearheading a group of community members who are tackling this issue and meeting to discuss it on a regular basis. What do we need to do as a community to address this issue still?
It's challenging to be able to address such a large issue with no funding for it. So we do meet, and we, thanks to the Sands Hotel, are able to have an event once a year. It's a Father's Day celebration. But what I'm hoping we could see is, just because men are already adults doesn't mean that they've healed or that they know how to be fathers. So I think that's a very critical part, because they still have children, and just because their children might be older, it would help to help people wherever they are at, so that this doesn't become the same ongoing cycle. And I think just bringing awareness to the problem and talking about it, making places more comfortable and welcoming for dads. Acknowledging them more.
Yes. I think it's important when you talk about they're not fully healed, or they don't know, they have a perception of what a father should be, and thinking back of your Leave It to Beaver comment, sometimes there's this already vision of what a father is, and if you can't live up to that, then you're not a good father, so you automatically pull yourself out of the picture when there's various models of what a father could be.
Right.
And we need to let men know that take it, if you haven't been there, you can take it slow, and you can make inroads. Just spend a day with your kid at school or read a book at night. That is okay, and you can take baby steps to get there.
All right, well, I know we've just scratched the surface, but we are out of time. Thank you each for joining me today.
Thank you.
Well, we'd love to hear from you. Is this issue a crisis? Join the conversation on social media at PBS 39 on Facebook and YouTube, and at PBS 39 channel on Twitter. You can also find us online at WLVT.org/focus. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week. Until then, remember to focus on what matters.